G'day guys, back with the Outer Circle. Today I want to talk about Primaris Marines, Games Workshop, 40k, and there's going to be some salt. Do forgive me if you hear a little background noise. This is my first recording with the pup. He's now 8 weeks old, coming on 9 weeks. No, actually he's a bit older than that. Anyway, he's young still. And he is sitting next to me and wants a bit of my attention, but I am trying to get content out for YouTube, so hopefully he's not too noisy. Anyway, the salt. So, earlier today, this morning, I got up and I saw this article here about how you can now create your own Space Marine chapters and successor chapters and how great it is. And the feeling I got when I look at this is that, well, they're trying to advertise it like it's this new, unique thing, and this is a first that they're coming up with, and, you know, you're just pretty much privileged that they've come up with it. Have you ever wanted to be your own chapter master, creating a mighty force, the Adeptus Astartes, in your own image, in the colours of your choosing? Of course you have, but how cool would it be if you were actually able to choose their chapter tactics as well? Well, in today's preview of the amazing new Codex Space Marines, we're looking at the successor tactics and how you can use them to create the army of your dreams. To me, that sounds like they're implying this is a first. Oh, this is amazing. You know, we're giving you the chance to paint your armies how you like and give them their own chapter tactics. Well, I'm sorry, it's not a first. It's existed before. If we refer back to 4th edition, these aren't my images, sorry. I was going to do an actual, and I still will, nostalgia trip where I look back at this codex. But back in 4th edition was the last time you could do this. So it's the one I reference most, and obviously you had quite a few traits you could actually pick from. There were drawbacks, there were big positives, negatives, all that sort of thing in order to balance it out. It was a really fun little system. And if you use something like the name chapters, like Ultramarine, Imperial Fist, Raven Guard, etc., they came with their own traits that you just applied to the army automatically. So, you know, not exactly what I'd call a first. But that's the implication I got. And I'm like, look, frankly, to me, this is bullshit. And that's what I posted online on our Facebook page. A lot of people took exception to this, and I want to go through some of the points that were raised. Some people have some valid points, you know, I'm not just going to shit on people. Things like, you know, for us it is new because we weren't there when they did it the first time. Well, okay, not being there when something's first released makes it new to you, yes, but it doesn't mean I shouldn't automatically be grateful that it's been brought back. And I'm one of these people who, you know, I think, yes, it is a good thing that they're bringing it back. It's maybe not a good thing in a competitive environment because it adds way too many additional factors in for balancing, and balancing, as we all know, is already fucked. This is just making it more convoluted. You can't just say that because it's new to you, it is new. It's not a new concept. It was something they did, they got rid of it. Okay, and this is not the first time Games Workshop's gotten rid of something and then eventually brought it back. But the thing that annoys me about our community is when people are really grateful to them for it. Oh, Games Workshop listens. Really, they listen. 16 years ago was the last time you could do this. You telling me that this is listening? 16 years. A company that listens would turn around within a few months and reinstate it, FAQ it, add an addition, a supplement, something to bring it back in. But no, Games Workshop decided for 16 years, well into 8th edition, well into Kevin Roundtree's run there, nah, too hard basket, let's not do it. Or, it's not what we want. You see, this is the thing, Games Workshop does not listen to you. Yes, they bring back specialist games. They can't finish Horus Heresy, they can't pull their finger out on that. And when it comes to specialist games, it's, you know, they don't release, here's all the warbands, here's a book, go out and play the game. It's, here's, you know, 4 warbands for Necromunda or something. Come back in 3 months and maybe we'll add another one. You know, we'll do different seasons, and we're not going to really edit our books properly. We're not going to, you know, get rid of typos, or we're not going to organise things in an easy way. Like, to me, these are all major concerns with the hobby. Now, I don't think it is salty to bring these up. And yet, that is the response I constantly get is, oh, you're salty, you're negative, you should leave the hobby. Okay, let's use an example. And, okay, it's not a great example either. Imagine you play a sport, maybe football, soccer, to the rest of the world, but football to many countries. Imagine if one day you were really good at soccer, and then they completely changed it. They completely changed the rules, what you're allowed to do, what you can't do. You don't even have to be good at it. Maybe you just enjoy the game. And now it's a completely different thing. Is it still enjoyable? I think it would be for some, but I think for others they would hate it. In Australia, our own AFL, they changed things like tackling rules. Oh, you're only allowed to tackle someone between, this height and this height. Or, you can't tackle someone this hard. Or, they constantly are trying to baby the game down. We don't want any injuries. We want this sport to be faster paced, more action packed, and they change it. To me, that's what this game is. They come up with something, they get it to the point where everyone's sort of pretty happy. People aren't going to say that 4th edition was terrible. I think you polled people, most people would say 4th and 5th edition was probably the best 40k editions. And then Games Workshop just comes in and they completely change it up. You don't need to be grateful to them for that, guys. And it is not negative to say that, I'm disappointed by this product. And it is completely okay to turn around to them and say, I would like you to change this in some way. And that's what we do here at the Outer Circle. We say, look, here is something I see you doing that I think maybe you should change. And there is nothing wrong with asking them to change. The problems come from how we do it and how they react to it. If we're polite and we, get a fair chunk of the community together, like say nearly 9,000 people, and we say, we think what you've just done is a bit fucked, and they just completely ignore it, can't even take the time to respond. They can't even send you an email that says, we've received your petition, and people, they can't even come and say that to nearly 9,000 people. And a person turned around to me on our Facebook page and said, well, why should they listen to you? So you're siding with a company over the consumers, which you're one of. Now, I get it. A company is there to make money. That's always the one that people love to throw in the comments. Oh, a company exists to make money. They only got to please the shareholders. Will you please the shareholders if you piss off enough customers that they stop buying from you? No, I think the shareholders will be pretty pissed about that. The shareholders don't know how you're running your company in the background. All they see is the dollars at the end of it. They don't see that Games Workshop's making a shitload of money from video games licensing. And a lot of that video games licensing is for the old world Warhammer, which, the company killed off. They want to see dollars at the end of the day, and I get that. But how Games Workshop or any company gets it needs to be ethical, and it needs to be consumer friendly. Right now, they are not consumer friendly. A consumer friendly company, and this applies to many companies around the world, would not go around increasing the product's prices globally by 40 to 60% in many cases, just based on the region you live in, especially if people can sit there at home like myself and do the maths and say, hang on, shipping's this much, taxes this much, this product should actually cost this much, and we can actually come up with the actual figures of what it should cost. If we can turn around and do that, maybe they shouldn't be so blatant, but they do it anyway, because this community has a fucking problem. And it needs to be said, people in this community are pushovers, walkovers completely, and they will suck the cock of the company. They will go on post after post and say, we love what you're doing, even if they don't. And I found a lot of these people, when actually pushed to defend their ideals, cannot do so. You see, I'm the same person in real life as I am here. I'm actually more fun, believe it or not. Probably sound horrible online. But a lot of these people who are, oh no, Games Workshop's great. You then sit down with them and you say, oh, what do you like about it? Oh, I like this and this. Okay, what about this? And then they're like, oh, well, no, I don't really like that. And it's like, okay, we get some chips in the facade. People start to acknowledge that maybe not everything's perfect. And, if I can spend long enough with someone, I can sort of destroy it for them, take that as a positive or a negative. Some might say, oh, but, they're enjoying it and you've taken the fun away from them. You're a monster. Others would say, well, you're enlightening them. You know, you're making things better for them by at least allowing them to understand what they're doing to themselves. You see, I don't get this whole blind mentality within the hobby that you either love it or you're a problem. There are plenty of things wrong with this game. Most of it stems from the company. The community has problems. The community is possibly too accepting of people in some circumstances, to the detriment of others. That's where I draw the line, you see. It's fine to accept everyone until the people you accept become a problem. Also, this community has problems with, as I said, just they'll take it on the chin from Games Workshop. How many other games, media purchases, that kind of thing, would you accept with the Games Workshop quality level? And I'll give you an example. If a codex is released and it requires a day one FAQ, why are you being sold that codex at full price? Why is that codex not reprinted, redacted, something like that? A codex might not even have those FAQ changes applied to it in its entire print run. It could be out for 3-4 years before they update it to another codex, and they never change it. Even though they reprint it in that time, they never change it. Would you accept that of another product? Would you accept that of another company? If you went to, say, I don't know, you went to your local store, and I was just thinking to myself how crazy this is, people actually buying DVDs, but imagine you bought a DVD. You didn't download it, you actually bought it. And you got it home and you put it in your player, and it was working perfectly fine, and then a scene was just missing in the middle of the film, and you knew it was missing. Would you accept it? No. You would probably turn around and say, oh, this is bullshit. But when it happens to a codex, people accept it. What the fuck's going on here? Book 7 in the Horus Heresy. Horus Heresy, love the game. To me, that's Games Workshop firing on all cylinders when they're doing it right. And in the Horus Heresy, weapons change names from one page to the next. Items of war gear that are listed on models have no description of what the actual war gear function is. Some items of war gear are outright left out of the book. It'll have them listed in one section, but then they're not actually on any model. A whole range of that throughout the book. Dozens and dozens of examples. And then you look at the background artwork, and there's tourists posing in the ruins of Prospero, because of course there is. And then you're like, I can't believe I paid like 170 Australian dollars for this, you know? That's half a week's rent for a house. For a watched product. It's forgiven, because it's Games Workshop. You're salty if you complain about it. Once upon a time, you could complain. And then I get another type of person that likes to comment on our Facebook posts or on our YouTube posts. And, oh, well, if you think you could do better, why don't you start a miniatures company? It's like, oh, no, really. We can't complain about anything unless we ourselves are equally successful in that field. Oh, well, you know, I see you bought a car, but your car is missing the back half. Well, unlucky for you, you don't own a car company, so I guess you should just sort of take it on the chin, you fuckhead. Yeah, it sounds retarded, doesn't it, when you say it like that? And yet, here we are with people saying the exact thing. They're like, oh, well, if you think it's so easy to make models much cheaper and make a competitive game that's balanced, then go out and do it. I'm like, I don't have to. Companies like Cool Mini or not, Fantasy Flight Games, they do that already. Go out and play Bolt Action, maybe. These games are out there. They're balanced. The buying price is a lot lower than Games Workshop per model. Some have better quality, some have worse quality. Depends what your quality metric is. For a lot of people, they're never going to, I hate to say this, you're never going to achieve results with the models worthy of the quality. Oh, yes, I'm harsh, I'm horrible, but how many people out there know someone who is either a shit painter and is never going to try and improve, and that's the key, trying to improve, or who maybe doesn't paint their models? In which case, does the quality of the Games Workshop models then matter at that point, if they're well cast? No, it doesn't. Common sense dictates it doesn't. So, these are some of the biggest gripes I've had. And, again, pointing out when something's a bit stupid does not mean I hate the hobby. It means I'm trying to improve the hobby. If you went to the cinemas and you watched the movie and the movie was practically black, you couldn't see what was happening in the movie, you'd complain about it. You'd be like, hey, I think the director of photography, even though I'm not a cinematographer, maybe the director of photography should have, lightened up the image a little so we could see what was going on. Again, you don't have to be a person in that skilled trade who's made it to the top making movies for Hollywood to point out when a movie's too dark to see. You don't need to be that. Therefore, can we apply the same logic to this hobby? Can we turn around and say, hey, maybe Games Workshop shouldn't try and sell back to us ideas they've gotten rid of. They're only able to sell it back to us because they got rid of it in the first place. We shouldn't be thanking them for that. We should be grudgingly accepting it. It's a different thing. It's a different mentality. Alright. Let's move on. Because while I'm here, let's just get all the salt out. What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? This is a good old-fashioned macaroni. This is shit. That is shit. But I like that. And Tigris is pretty bland. That is like 10 people sat around in a boardroom in suits and went, that's what the kids want. That's what I think when I look at that Tigris model. I'm frankly shocked it doesn't have like an upturned palm in the left hand holding lightning or something. Like, that's the only way this could have been more generic for such an iconic character. The White Skull looks great. The only problem is he's on foot. Corsair Khan, we already have a miniature on foot. We'd like one on a jet bike, please, Games Workshop. We're on a bike in general. Primaris bikes, in fact, wouldn't be bad. Of course, if I was a betting man, and again, I'm not an industry expert, but I mean, I did predict the stupid fucking Grav Rhino down there like 6 to 8 months ago, but I'm no industry expert. I'm going to go out on a limb here and predict jet bikes for Primaris. Why? 'Cause it's just common sense at this point. They're not going to go bikes. Bikes are normal Space Marines. No, jet bikes. But they won't be like the Custodes jet bikes either. They'll be blocky. They'll be block-shaped. And they'll have these big grav plates underneath, just like their transports do. And maybe some of these roll bar things for some reason. That's what they'll do. For sure. Because it's Games Workshop. It's very predictable. How long? Don't know. And you know what? The best part is, when they do release them, it won't be like White Scars themed bikes. It'll mostly be Ultramarines. Because again, it's Games Workshop. Come on, they're predictable. I say within a year. Within a year, some form of Space Marine bike or jet bike. I don't even know if they'll be in the Codex. I just think they'll eventually get around to doing it because, money. There's only so many infantry models you can make, right? I mean, that's why we got to the point where they're releasing fucking... What is this? This is like those mech suits of Avatar meets the mech suits of the third and second Matrix movies. Okay. I want to do two things here. First, we're going to use real-world logic, and the second thing we're going to do is we're going to use in-universe logic. So, real-world logic here is these designs don't work. These don't look plausible as a real-life design. Now, a lot of people are going to turn around and say, but Games Workshop designs are over the top. 40k's over the top. It's crazy, You literally fly through hell to get from planet to planet. You're fighting space orcs and giant bugs, and 40k's crazy. Yeah, I'll grant 40k is crazy. But it's also down to earth at the same time and a bit more reality-based. Like, look at this. The average Rhino, the Space Marine transport tank. It wants to be an M113. That's basically what it is. It's not much of a leap to go, oh yeah, that exists. Oh, it's a sci-fi version. It's got the same principles, sloped armor, couple of crew members up the front, Commander's Cupola. It does have some side hatches, which is a little bonus, I guess. Rear hatch. Yeah, it's an APC. It's not much of a stretch of the imagination to get from point A to point B. When you look at this thing, though, you're like, where the fuck's the crew? Like, that doesn't make sense. This isn't the logical follow-on. And then your brain starts saying things like, well, if a Rhino has a 10-man capacity, and that's with normal-sized Space Marines, and it needs all this sort of track space on the sides for the power plant, for the engines to drive the wheels and those exhaust stacks, where's the power plant for something that has both jet turbines and enough gravitic power to lift it off the ground as well as all the occupants, fuel, whatever? This thing must have an insane power source. And then you're like, well, if they can come up with a power source that insane and that good, why the fuck aren't they putting that in everything? That's crazy. I mean, look at this thing. It shouldn't work. It doesn't work. This is... Like I was saying before with Tigris, how it was like 10 people sat around in suits in a boardroom and went, we think that will sell to the fucking Fortnite crowd. This is what they came up with. So, again, let's think back to our Rhino example. When the Rhino becomes the Razorback, and it just gets a single twin-linked heavy bolter on top. Tiny little twin-linked heavy bolter. That cuts the transport capacity basically in half. Lose 4 model slots just for a twin-linked heavy bolter. This thing, heavy stubber on the front, totally cool with it. The weird Stormbolter thing on the side, what the fuck is that? Why is that there? That shouldn't be there. For a start, get rid of that. There should be either a side hatch or just a flat panel. Second, that turret on the back with that weird looking... It looks kind of like an old American 30 cal machine gun. I'm guessing it's some sort of weird heavy stubber. That is bigger than the twin heavy bolter turret. So this thing's transport capacity should be totally fucked up. And then it's got different heights from one end of the vehicle to the other. Like, that wouldn't be a major thing if the back wasn't a big open tray that you throw your guys on, and there's no way 10 Primaris are getting on this thing. This thing looks like it's about halfway between a Land Raider and a Rhino in size, so I don't know what the transport capacity is, but it can't be great. That's another thing. Why has it got a weird open back? Like, people would have been fine with an upscaled Rhino that could finally take Primaris Marine. It was just called a Rhino, like a Mark III Rhino. Why can't we update from this Mark II model? Sorry. The Mark II Rhino is a model that came out in 2001 from memory, maybe 2002. I was there when it came out, and it was a lot bigger, and the previous Rhino before this came up to pretty much the start of the exhaust stacks, and was only as wide as this tank if you removed half the hull, basically. Took like one of the tracked sides completely off. That was about the width. Much smaller tank. People were cool with it. Nobody complained. They could have just done that. Release a bigger Rhino, but they couldn't. It needs to be cool and grav. What's with the roll bar on the front? What the fuck is that going to do? It's too high up for the grav plates to not hit something. And anything that tank's going to hit, well, it's armoured. If the roll bar... the tank is going to stop whatever it hits. It doesn't need a roll bar, is what I'm getting at. It's fucking stupid. It's just a clusterfuck of design ideas. And I pointed this out the other day, again, on our Facebook page. Designs, it's not about what you can do, it's what you can leave out. It's all about simplicity of design, finding the right balance of features. To me, if you got rid of the top turret, got rid of the little side one, closed in the back of this would probably be a working vehicle, and get rid of the stupid roll bar. You could have the grav plates, you could have the jet turbines, close the back off like a normal Rhino, have it fully enclosed, no fucking assault deck on the back, and yeah, get rid of the side sponsor and the back turret. This would look great. But instead, because a person doesn't have to sit there and hand sculpt those details anymore, the laziness of having a computer has kicked in, because a person just goes, oh, I've got a file for some Stormbolters. Click, drag, rescale, slap on. That looks great. What about this? It's like they can't just see a flat panel anymore and leave it. They can't see something like the side of a Rhino and go, we could put a Legion or chapter symbol on the side here and just leave it bare. Just leave it bare. Instead, no, we've got to put more guns there. Ludicrous amounts of guns. Like, this is the transport tank, and it has as many, between the sponsons and the rear turret, it's now got as many weapons as a Predator battle tank. A battle tank. And also the turret on the back will shoot straight into the back of the head of whoever's manning that heavy stubber, which is just fucking hilarious. But, whatever. Leave well enough alone. If you just stripped a few details off, you'd have a decent looking vehicle here. This is just over-designed. Over-designed as hell. And then we get to this fucking thing. And now I'm going to apply a bit of in-universe and out-of-universe logic. So in-universe, the great thing has always been STCs. Standard template constructs. everything comes from STC and the Imperium. And the beauty of it was that, hey, if you had something like Terminator suits and you don't want them to proliferate on the battlefield, you don't want them to be everywhere, Land Raiders, you would be like, fuck, why do they even bother with Rhinos? They've got Land Raiders. STCs, it's easy. They go, we don't have the STC anymore, we've forgotten how to make them. This is basically, we just have to repair the ones we've got. And that's why everyone we lose is a major, major thing. It's a big deal, And that mentality meant that, hey, you don't see whole armies of Land Raiders full of Terminators, for example. That's like First Company, but even then, it's restricted in size to a First Company formation of about 100 Marines. Well, if you take that away, and you say, well, you can engineer anything, and this is the problem with Belisarius Core. If you can engineer and create any new thing, and you have the resources and the Imperium behind it, that means you can create a lot of the new thing. And so instead of having STC there as like a war balancing factor, as much as it is an in-game models balancing thing, you see, that was what was great about the STCs. It's actually balancing the war and stopping you from saying things like, oh, fuck, why does the Imperium just not make 100 Imperator class fucking Titans and throw them at an Orc Warg or something? And then you're like, well, no, you can't just throw 100 Imperator Titans at a Warg because they're really hard to make. The STCs are only on a couple of planets, And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When you remove that, when you say, oh no, we have the technology, we know how to do it, we're making them now, then all of a sudden, you look at something like this battle mech and you're like, well, why aren't we pulling a Soviet Union in the 1940s and turning this thing out like T-34s? These things should be replacing infantry on the battlefield, because it would give you such an advantage having the numbers that can be provided by bulk mech suits with ridiculous amounts of gunslinger firepower from their cowboy platform, because this thing has a fucking sidearm. Even dreadnoughts no longer really have a place now, because, well, you can just slap a Marine in. Part of the whole thing with the dreadnought was, a person's dying and you can sort of put their body in and it uses their own existing brain and neural network to control it. If you can make a robot where a Marine can just sit inside it and he has full functional control, like on the Dreadnought, which is stupid as well, then you're just like, fuck, make more of those! Imagine flooding the battlefield with these things. You think, you're a Chaos Space Marine, gonna go on your Black Crusade, and you're like, fuck yeah, gonna tear up some Imperial ass, and you rock up on a planet expecting to find, a tactical squad of Space Marines. And instead of a tactical squad, 20 of these fucking things come out. You'd be like, oh shit, what have I done? And it doesn't even need a Marine pilot. Like, a Marine may have quicker reflexes, I suppose, but you could just put a normal basic bitch human in this. Imagine the killing power upgrade the Imperial Guard just got. You don't need to send Marines to every conflict hotspot anymore. You just send the Imperial Guard in these things. And if people go, oh, well, the power arm provides protection to the pilot, close the canopy. Put a big fucking glass bubble over it. Put an armoured shell over it. Doesn't really matter. Like, it's not plumbed into the Black Carapace because his Marine skin isn't showing. This Marine is driving it with joysticks, so it can't be plumbed into his Black Carapace. It makes no sense in universe. It makes no sense if you apply the logic out of the universe. Because you're like, well, fuck, make lots of them. I guarantee you, like, if you're an army right now and you're like, we have the capability of making a kick-ass jet fighter and we're going into a war where our enemies are going to be using planes, maybe we'd want to build a lot of the jet fighter. Well, it's the same thing here. And again, doesn't need a Marine to operate it. It could have anyone operate it. In which case, save the Marines for the battlefield roles where you can't get one of these big mech things into, and instead, fill your big mechs full of other guys. Fill it full of Imperial Guardsmen, something like that. Sisters of Battle. Imagine Sisters of Battle rocking up in this stuff. It just... There is no reason not to, basically. Because again, you can't hide behind the STC thing anymore and say, oh, well, because we haven't got the STC, we just can't mass produce it. Now they're like, yeah, we know how to mass produce it. Why aren't you then? Oh, well, reasons. That's the best you've got, reasons. Even the Tau have the same sort of process. with the Tau, it's like, oh, they're an evolving empire. That's why every codex comes out, they get a new generation of battlesuits. Makes sense. And what do? They proliferate. They get as many of those battlesuits out as they can. See, whole armies full of Crisis battlesuits these days. Back when the Tau first came out, it was all Fire Warriors. Maybe a unit or two of battlesuits, and that was pretty fancy. Now, the odd Devilfish and Hammerhead, now it's like fucking battlesuits everywhere. Why? Because in-universe, that's what the Tau are doing as well. Not just in the game. So, when you look at this, you're like, oh, this breaks the immersion. That's what it comes down to. Breaking the immersion. This thing's retarded because of that. Because you're sitting here right now and you're going, Macca kind of has a point. But there'll always be that person, that GW cockwriter, who's going to turn around and say, Macca, don't be salty. They're just releasing models. People can just have fun building them. I'm not aiming this at those people. I'm aiming this at Games Workshop and what I'm seeing, my point of view of what this product's doing for me. Okay? I don't need a person there to tell me, you're being salty by picking apart logical flaws with their model. It's like, if they just want to make models, go for it. Don't worry about creating a game or a universe around them. If you want to create a game or a universe around them, be fucking consistent with it, will you? Because right now, this is a shit heap. This is a garbage fire. This is a fucking dumpster fire in action. These are horrible. And it's even basic shit like, look at these scouts. These aren't terrible, one might say. Hang on, the old scouts are at least in, really light carapace armor. These guys are wearing, clearly, hard armor. Hard armor makes noise. Noise is bad if you're a reconnaissance trooper, no matter what universe you're fighting in. What about our lead scout here in the middle? He's pulled his fucking scope off his rifle to look through. Great, you've destroyed the Zero on your precision weapon. What about your precision weapon? Oh, it's got a silencer. Oh yeah, but the committee got involved. They took a G36 here, gave it a longer barrel and a suppressor. Problem is they put a muzzle brake in the end suppressor. Why is that a problem? Because now you've fucked either the suppressor or the muzzle brake, because if one of them's doing its job properly, the other one isn't doing its job at all. Because the way a suppressor works is it takes all the gases escaping behind that round and diverts them, and they go down all these different passages and are slowly released from the weapon to reduce the noise. But if it's got a muzzle brake, it needs to quickly vent out the size of that muzzle brake to prevent the recoil of the weapon. And if it's a flash hider, well, you wouldn't put a flash hider in at all, because the suppressor automatically is going to be hiding flash, because, again, that long process means the combustion fizzles out while it's working its way through the baffles. So, that's kind of fucked. And it's just little things like that that ruin the immersion for me. Well, yeah, of course, people are going to turn around and say, you don't need to think of it like the real world. I don't need to think of it like the real world, but it's funny when I do. Just little things. It's another reason to sell a codex to people. I like the White Scars guy. I would use his belt buckle. I would cut his hands off. I would use the totem off his backpack, and that's about it. And you can make some really kick-ass 30k conversions out of it. I'd put more effort into that than Forge World. I mean, this is the best White Scars model Forge World never did. So kudos to Games Workshop for that. Maybe try a black next time. Just saying. So that's my Salt look. Rules existed to make your own chapters before. Doing this big press release about how now you can make your own chapters is like saying, hey, look, here's something that was in the game for the first 4 editions. We removed it for 3. Now we gave it back. Be grateful. Seems a bit hollow to me. But hey, I'm just some salty asshole on the internet. Anyway, downvote buttons, the thumb that points down. That's the one you need to click, guys. So keep an eye out for that. And please defend the company down in the comments. There's always someone who will. Because, it's more important to go in to defend the integrity of a billion-dollar organization than the people who actually gave them the money in the first place, buy the product, and whose ultimate support is the factor that determines whether or not the product is actually successful. And saying things like, Games Workshop's making money is not the measure of success. It is the most basic perception of how success is measured in business. Because just as quickly as someone's making money, it can all go pear-shaped. See you all next time.